Welcome to Quantum Leap Podcast episode number 12. This is actually recorded as our second episode, but was a pilot project with our friend Jake Ralston. So we want to thank Jake for his patience and helping us pilot this project and the great work while we were still settling on a format. So, Jake, we look forward to bringing you back and enjoy episode number 12 that was actually our second episode. This is a second edition of the Quantum Leap podcast, which if you haven't heard about it, it's actually about business development in the COVID-19 environment, lifting up local businesses with a strong focus on business coaching and key success principles for small business success. I'm excited to have Jake Ralston on to talk about his business NLP training and how he's adapting to the new COVID-19 environment. Jake will also take us through a very compelling demonstration exercise online to show how he can connect with his clients remotely. And Cory Nott is a co-host, and we're actually all friends, and Cory went through one of Jake's trainings as well, and Cory is a expert business coach. So Cory, I'm great to have you on as a co-host and hear about your knowledge and your work with Jake as well as we get to it. And but I just wanted to briefly introduce my relationship with Jake, and I wanted to have Cory say a few words about his work with Jake as well. Jake and I have known each other for about a year now, and I've been very grateful to have him as a friend and colleague. His knowledge and expertise has benefited me greatly in my business and my professional relationships, but he's also showed me how far I have to go. But I appreciate to have such a good guide. And, a lot of folks may not know some of the things that he knows about necessarily, and that they may not be the most accessible, but once we take a closer look, I think everybody will see the huge value of the business NLP training, hypnotherapy, and just the way that Jake works in a very practical way to get in touch with yourself and what's going to really unlock your keys to success for business. So I'll leave it there for now. And I just wanted to turn it over to Cory to introduce himself and his experience with Jake, and then we'll get right to the interview.
Hey everyone, I'm Cory Nott, and glad to be here co-hosting this podcast with David. David, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this new project of yours. And I am, as he said, a business coach and focusing on helping mainly solopreneurs and freelancers grow their business and really align it with their purpose. I've known Jake, well, I'm not really sure how long. I think we met when about the time you started dating Evelyn, probably. And then she started talking about motorcycles. And so we had lots of good conversations about that. But we came into a more professional capacity about 3 years ago when he came into BNI and started learning more about what he was doing in hypnotherapy and so on. And then I attended his NLP training course to become a certified master practitioner in NLP. And just working with Jake, I don't think it could have been any better. He's so, he's just got a wonderful, easy way to build rapport and listen to in his training. And he's got a lot of passion for what he does. I've also done a couple of sessions with him because I have things that kind of go on in my head, and it's like, well, how do I quiet those down? And I found hypnotherapy to go beyond what we can do in self-actualization work to get to some of those core issues. And Jake is just great to work with in that regard.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for our listeners who may not know Cory, he is one of the top business coaches in Oakland. If you've been in the business community in Oakland for any length of time, you probably know him. He's done a lot of work for the Chamber of Commerce and other, business circles. He's also area director for BNI, and he's been hugely influential in helping me develop and build my business. And now he has a new platform for freelancers called Lyft that we're going to be actually discussing more of in a future recording. So, Cory, great to have you, and I really look forward to getting right into this interview with Jake. Um, Jake, just could you open it up by briefly describing what the business NLP training is and what its benefits are for business owners, particularly in this COVID-19 environment, if there is any special considerations there?
For sure. And first of all, I want to say thank you to you guys for having me here today. And I really appreciate what you're doing here in this new environment. I've known you guys for quite some time now, and it's nice that we're all finally doing something together here as a group. So that's awesome. So to answer your question, NLP for me plays a big role in what's going on right now because one of the main principles of NLP is flexibility and really being able to kind of make a pivot move when necessary, or ask myself a question like, well, how much do I have to freak out right now? And really kind of take an inventory of, what tools I have to kind of help me deal with what's actually happening right now, not what used to happen, not what might happen, but what I can do in the moment to take advantage of the only time I have available to me to make change, which is the moment. So that's kind of what I've been helping business owners with and entrepreneurs do with the coaching in the NLP way, is to kind of customize the NLP training that they require to help them gain that flexibility and gain a easier path of least resistance to where they want to go using some pretty simple tools.
Excellent.
So Jake, knowing that your business, it can go multiple directions, but it tends to be a very sort of one-to-one type of work. How would you say you're adapting your business activities to this new environment and where we're all kind of stuck sheltering in place? And even for a while, as soon as, trying to put people in front of you.
Sure. I'm lucky enough that my business translates well to the airwaves, so I can have just an effective session working with hypnotherapy clients, whether it's a Zoom session or in person. It'll be equally as effective. And when it comes to the NLP coaching, the same principle applies. We're doing work that expands our ideas and our views of and how we comprehend the world already anyway. So just getting into those conversations, it doesn't matter if we're in the same room or not. So I am very lucky in that respect that I can take the physical in-person element out of what I do and still be just as effective.
Great. Some of our hypnotherapy sessions have given me a real increased awareness of a number of things that have helped me immensely in business, particularly breaking down of barriers, limiting beliefs, and opening up new possibilities. So I've learned from you and Cory and others, as entrepreneurs, our success in business really depends on our success as a person to grow and overcome obstacles in our way, to increase our effectiveness and ultimately our profitability. How would you describe the results that business owners can get from doing sessions with you in hypnotherapy, but also in the NLP training? I know there's a kind of a bit of a crossover there as well.
Yeah, and I'll touch on that crossover a little bit first. And NLP is kind of the breakdown of the human experience. It's how we filter the world through our senses, how we communicate interpersonally and intrapersonally, right? So by having an awareness of that happening, that kind of meta observation point, it's a little easier to say to myself, or a person to say to themselves, where am I now? Where do I want to go? What tools and resources do I have to get there? And has what I've been doing been working for me? And if not, what can I do to make a change? So the NLP side of that is very nuts and bolts. It's the breakdown of it. It's language patterns. It's identifying the language patterns that we're using. It's identifying language patterns that we can adjust to get the quicker result, creating a new path of least resistance in our maps of the world is kind of another way to talk about NLP. So on the hypnosis side of that, it's a little bit more direct in a session setting, one-on-one working with a client, where I gather information, again, where they are now, where they want to be, and what they have to get from the inside. However, in the hypnosis session, I do more of the direct interview process and the questioning of, and kind of help create the framework for the person to kind of come to their own aha moment with those answers. And so it's not my job to give advice specifically or tell people what to do to make that change in their life that's going to be the one thing that got them to where they wanted to be, or the next level, or on top of their game, or whatever it is. However, I can create a framework where they're like, oh yeah, well, all I got to do is these three things differently than I've been doing it, and I'll have that success I want. So in a hypnosis setting, it's more of me helping create an environment for them to learn and grow and pull their resources and tools out from their toolbox or their storage shed. And in a NLP situation, it's more about teaching them how to identify those tools and how to use them at the appropriate time and become unconsciously competent with a new framework of using the English language or using the way they observe what's going on in their world, their experience. Does that answer your questions? That kind of makes sense? I don't know if I kind of got off a little.
Yeah, that's great. Cory, do you have anything to add about what you saw that you got out of the business NLP training in terms of things that you use in your business?
Well, first I start with the question to Jake is, what are some of the kinds of things, maybe some concrete examples of what a business owner would bring to you as something they would want to solve?
Sure. Okay. So in a really general example, perhaps it's somebody that has an issue with making cold calls, right? And so through hypnosis, we can turn that limitation into a resource. Maybe there could be 10 million things that are causing that cold feet when it comes to cold calls. And, we can kind of identify that and rectify it, help the person figure out a way to make sense of that and use that to their advantage now. For instance, and I'll use my partner here. She has given me explicit permission to use this example. I never talk about clients and what they go through unless they want me to share their story specifically. However, she had an issue with phone calls and not making the amount of phone calls that she wanted to do. And in hypnosis, it went back to the reason she was shy about making phone calls is because she was shy about speaking up for herself as a child in a certain context. And all these years later, it translated into adulthood. Oh, I don't want to reach out and make phone calls all day and cold calls. So we rectified that, gave that child a voice and able to speak up for itself. And lo and behold, all of a sudden she's making phone calls and not even thinking about it. And I didn't lead her back to that childhood moment. I set up a framework for her to identify what was stopping her, and that's what came out of her mouth. What I'm finding is that, most people have some sort of blockage, some sort of wall, some sort of barrier where they've gotten to a plateau in their business or something is holding them back, and they may know what it is or think they know what it is. They may not have a clue. And again, that's the beauty of hypnosis and the beauty of NLP. Through some of the way they use their language, we can identify language patterns that are holding them back. Or through hypnosis, we can identify things like I just described and rectify the situation that way. And lo and behold, you're on to the next level and not looking back.
Yeah, I did have a blockage that you helped me clear up that I still use, and I'd almost forgot about some of it, and that once you kind of get rid of it, you're on to the next. But early on in one session, you helped me. I was having trouble with the kids focusing on my work, which is definitely a issue right now in this shelter in place, and not something that I'm completely cured of. But by taking me in touch with this map of myself, you helped me realize that I could actually overcome that and increase my focus on my work, even in light of having the kids and other, my, so, I really continue to use that. And I think you almost don't know what's possible until you give it a try. And I was just amazed at some of the blockages that you are able to clear up.
One of the founding ideas of what I do is that nobody's wrong, broken, bad, or stupid. Everybody's doing the best they can at any given moment with all the information that they have at that point of their life. And they might have other resources and strengths they're not using at that time. However, they're doing the best they can. So by the time somebody comes to me, they're stuck in some kind of situation often. And it is because of something that came about for a really good reason. For instance, again, back to that story I was speaking about with my partner. When she was a child, she had this shyness or didn't speak up for herself for a very good reason, very appropriate strategy for her to keep herself safe in her life. And again, once that translates throughout the years, she's a different person. Her experiences change. What she requires out of her communication with people is completely different. However, that was such an important strategy. That was such an important founding principle of how she behaves and communicates with people that it stuck and translated all these years later to her not making phone calls. So again, once we honor that part and maybe even give it a promotion and have it do something better for her, and maybe that's the part that's leading the charge on the phone calls now, for all we know. So experience changes, context changes. We all have the tools and resources inside of us to get where we want to go and to do the things that we want to do and grow the way we want to grow. It's just a matter of pulling that up at the right time and kind of cutting through the noise of life and kind of asking ourselves, where are we now? Where do we want to be? What do I have to pull from inside to get there?
There we go. That would be a problem, wouldn't it? No, I was going to comment, and I don't know if it's really for the podcast or not, but I've been working on doing an assessment program using, thanks to Jake going through NLP. This program uses an area of NLP that's a little bit different than he would use. It's more assessment oriented, identifying certain patterns. And I love what my mentor said last week. He says, if you're thinking, the way you think could get you where you want to go, you'd already be there. Right. So sometimes it's, where NLP is so powerful, and hypnotherapy especially, is that it can really change the way you think and unlock, just basically get people out of those patterns.
Like Wayne Dyer says, you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Or,
right.
Another version of that is a problem can't be solved with the same thinking that created it, right? So those are all absolutely connected.
Yeah. So let's go to that. What is your professional training in the field of NLP and hypnotherapy?
Well, when I had you in my class, I was doing full-on master practitioner training from A to Z NLP. There you go. That for me seemed to be a little bit like herding cats, getting everybody into the same room at the same time and on the same page continually. So I decided to kind of streamline what I was doing a little better. I'm not offering full master practitioner classroom training with multiple people. I'm doing more of individual or small groups of 2 or 3 people that want to learn specific aspects of NLP. And that is based on a 20-hour training program versus a 100-hour training program, and based specifically on the outcomes that the person wants to get out of it. Although it includes most of the founding principles and ideas of NLP and kind of how to begin to call yourself an NLPer and somebody that thinks in the NLP framework and has those tools as an unconscious competence. And that's, again, what I'm going for, is somebody that just can kind of begin to think this way. And because I find it a very efficient way to think and to interpret the world.
Great. And one, quality that I really value in you, Jake, is that how supportive you are. It's new material. It's also these issues. And, Cory, I feel the similar quality in his coaching is that you really need somebody in your corner who makes you feel comfortable to address these issues. And I think that's something that, Jake, you in particular bring to the table. And I I'd say the same about Cory. So,
Sure.
and I think the best way to probably show that is to actually take us through a 5 to 10 minute demonstration of yours,
Yeah.
and just to show kind of what this is about and how you work. So if you don't mind, I'll turn it over to you for that demo.
Yeah, I'd love to. So what I'm going to walk you guys through right now is a basic visualization technique. I'm going to ask you to use your imagination a little bit. I know some of us are a little rusty with that, but we all have an excellent imagination. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to ask you guys if there's something that's been bothering you or something that you'd like to feel better about. And we're going to work on that today. And we're going to have you do something with that and turn it into something that is a little more resourceful for you. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. So the first step of this is really to think about that thing that's been bothering you. Think about that thing that you'd like to feel better about. And what you're going to want to do is then boil that down into one word that really connects you to that thing. One word that really describes that thing that had been bothering you. And it could be nervous or sad or mad or COVID-19. It could be anything, whatever's going on in your particular world. And when you've got that word, identify a color associated with that unwanted feeling, that unwanted emotion. Good, you guys are doing great. Visualize that word now in that color, fully and completely in front of you. And as you observe that word floating there in front of you, notice how big it is. Is it really big or is it small? Notice if it's flat or if it's three-dimensional. Notice if it has any grit or grain to it, or rough edges or rounded. Yeah, notice if that word has any particular weight. Is it heavy or is it light? Is there a certain humming or buzzing or sound that goes with that word? And as you notice all those qualities of that word that I asked you about, and even more that I didn't, have that word now move out in front of you. Begin to just move it away, further and further out towards the horizon. When you get it way out there, push it even 10 feet further still. So you can barely even make out this, it was even ever a word. Good, and when you've got it way out there now, whatever color was present before, whatever shading was present before, just have that begin to just drain out and be replaced by a very pleasant helium-like color, a pastel, pleasant, floaty color. That's right, and as that color begins to take over, each letter begins to just float and lift and separate and dance. And once that new color's taken over each letter completely with a simple blowing gesture, just blow it out of your life completely. Good. Now with that clear horizon, a new word begins to come into form, a word that really represents how you want to feel. That's right. Everything's right in the world. Everything's exactly at ease inside your body, inside your mind. And what word represents that? And notice the color associated with that word now. And as you notice that word moving closer to you now, and that color that really represents how you want to feel now. Notice if that word's three-dimensional or if it's flat. Notice if that word has any particular grit or grain to it, if the edges are rounded or sharp. Notice if that word has any noise associated with, any buzzing, any humming, any sound, any regal trumpets blaring. Notice how good that word feels and how good you feel as that word just hovers above you now, floating there, radiating that good energy, that wonderful feeling. The complete opposite of that other word. Yes, feeling that feeling, seeing that glowing word, hearing that noise. Good. And when you're ready to have that now fully and completely in your life, just breathe that word in. That's right. Fill your body, fill your lungs, fill every cell, every muscle, every fiber of your being with that wonderful feeling, that lovely word. See yourself now having that wonderful feeling with you fully and completely as you do the things that you do in your life every day. Just feeling better, easier being you. Good. And when you're ready to have that now fully and completely in your life today and every day, go ahead and just take a nice deep breath and open your eyes. Good job. So how was that for you guys? I saw a lot of processing there from you, David.
Yeah, it was great. I love the way that you feel like I have some language now since I've been doing it. You get us in touch with our subconscious so you can really make change, and without, you can't do it by yourself. So I really, it's almost a refreshing exercise for me that, doing that. And
Nice. Well, you have a little bit of a different glow to you than you did before.
oh, good. Thank you.
And perkier there.
Good. Yeah. I appreciate it.
How about you, Cory?
Yeah, it's always a good exercise. And so, and I practice that with others. It's definitely a go-to when somebody has, just some feelings that they're stuck on.
Yeah, and it's so great because that one is, simple visualization exercise. You can do it over the phone with someone. You can do it in this setting. In this setting, like I said, I could calibrate, we call it, to David, and I could see a little bit of change in his color and his cheeks and just how he's holding his body and stuff. And it's a really good way to kind of give yourself a little extra boost.
Great. Well, thanks. With that, I wanted to thank Jake for joining us today, and I appreciate all the help you've given me and Cory and the other business owners around the Bay Area. And we'll have you back on to catch up on some of this stuff and maybe do an in-person session. That I will put the links to how to get a hold of you in below, and we'll leave it at that. And Cory, thanks also for being a part of this. And with that, we'll see everyone on the next episode of Quantum Leap.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake.